to EQUUS Farm Calls, where we take horse owners along with us to discuss important topics on equine health and care with industry experts. Today, we get to talk to Dr. Anne-Marie Aumann about equine acupuncture. And I'm going to tell you, I have worked with Dr. Aumann before with my veterinarian podcast, and you are really going to enjoy this episode. And we want to tell you that EQUUS Farm Calls is brought to you in 2022 by Farnam, the makers of Apple Elite electrolytes. An electrolyte supplement can't work if your horse won't eat it. Keeping horses hydrated in the heat of summer during competition or other stressful situations can be challenging, especially if they sort powders and pastes are not an option. For horses that are picky eaters, Apple Elite electrolyte pellets is a simple way to encourage water consumption and help maintain hydration year-round, which is important for proper digestion, muscle function, and recovery. These tasty apple-flavored pellets are formulated with a balanced electrolyte profile of the vital minerals needed to help restore your horse's electrolyte levels. Help your horse stay hydrated and keep fluid levels in balance, no matter what the day brings, with Apple Elite electrolyte pellets. I'm Kim Brown, group publisher of the Equine Health Network, and Dr. Aumann is a veterinarian who established Del Dios Veterinary Acupuncture in California to focus on healing patients, dogs and horses through traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. And she provides acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine to her equine and canine patients. And during vet school, she attended the Chi Institute near Ocala, Florida, where she studied traditional Chinese veterinary medicine, and that's where she became a certified veterinary acupuncturist. She then became certified in veterinary Chinese herbal medicine through the same Chi Institute, and she continues to advance her education in that specialty. She also serves on the board of the American Academy of Veterinary Acupuncturists. So I've talked a long time. Thank you, Dr. Aumann, for joining us today on EQUUS Farm Calls.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm so excited to have you here, but I want to just start with something very basic. How can acupuncture help horses?
So I was thinking about that when you asked me to be on this podcast, and I was thinking, what's the best way that horse owners can view acupuncture for horses? And I think the best analogy that I can think of is really a historical explanation. So in traditional Chinese medicine, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, a doctor came into your home and did preventative medicine. And so every month the doctor would come and look through your cabinets, get rid of all the junk food, tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing, would make custom recommendations, right? So maybe the husband is, suffering from prostate issues or something like that. And so his diet's going to be a little bit different, and what he's going to drink for tea is going to be different. And then the wife, maybe she's going through menopause. She's going to be getting some cooling plants and cooling herbs, and her acupuncture treatment is going to focus on the things that she's experiencing. And then the children are also going to have their maladies that are going to be custom treated. And what was neat about that approach was that if you became sick, you did not pay the doctor when you got sick. Because you were paying for the preventative medicine, and they thought that the doctor failed if you got sick. And so then if you got sick, all the treatments, everything that you got in hospitalization was paid for already. And so that is how acupuncture can be seen by horse owners. I used to think, acupuncture, this is a luxury thing, right? This is a spa treatment. Well, it's actually just preventative medicine. We're still doing a physical exam. We're going over the horse from stem to stern, and we're nitpicking on all these tiny little subtleties that we're finding here. And that helps us keep the horse healthy. And actually, I have a number of high-end jumper horse owners, who have owned slews of horses, and they have found that actually investing in preventative medicine decreases their overall cost of sports medicine care over the lifetime of the horse, which is actually really neat to be able to say that from a financial perspective.
Yeah, where were you when I was going through menopause? But we won't dwell on that. So, what are some of the equine physical or behavioral issues that respond well to acupuncture, or that you would treat to prevent?
So some of the things are your kind of everyday aches and pains that you might get from going to the gym. So overtraining, right? Some sore muscles. Well, we know that, if horses are ridden a certain way, for an extended period of time in an excess manner, that can end up causing, lameness later on down the road if they're not able to be fit enough to support themselves, right? And so you can think about if you have a muscle tear, that's going to affect your gait and it's not going to be balanced anymore. And if you keep on being unbalanced, you're going to be overloading the front end, and now you're in trouble. And so acupuncture helps keep them comfortable so that they move well. And we know that motion is lotion, and the more that we can have these horses move around, the healthier that they can be. And so I would say that for my particular practice in California and Michigan and Florida, those are the things that I'm working on is athletes' care. Now, I think the powerhouse of acupuncture is actually in other areas, in internal medicine. The one that we've talked about, you and I before, Kimberly, is gastritis, right? Stomach concerns. One of the biggest things that I work on with horses is both a kind of identifying, helping owners see that their horses might be a little bit uncomfortable in their digestive tract. And then that also is a way of educating owners to then go on and get the diagnostic tools that they need from Western medicine to then pursue things further if need be. I treat a lot of horses with hindgut dysbiosis. These are kind of, my horse has been having diarrhea for a decade, but that's normal. And that is not normal. So acupuncture can really help the gut be more balanced, help that colon reabsorb more water, so that you have normal form of manure. Other things can be helpful as far as, we've talked about laminitis. There's so much literature out there about laminitis and acupuncture for any pain condition. Those are kind of the big things. And I would say that acupuncture for the horse owner, even if you're not in a sport horse, it's not a riding horse, maybe it's a horse used for breeding or just a pet, the big thing is the diagnostic scan, the acupuncture diagnostic scan. Your veterinarian, by tracing over acupuncture points, can highlight if there's areas of pain in the body, including internal organs as well. Now, this should be taken with the caveat that, this is Eastern medicine. It is just one lens of work looking at the horse, but it can provide some additional information. If you have a mare that's been having painful cycles, right, and where she's really crampy, and she's also, very sensitive to palpation in her lower back, over points that can be associated with the ovaries, that may stimulate a conversation where we go to, all right, well, let's do a reproductive ultrasound and see what's going on with her. Even if, we didn't understand that was her area of interest before, but I think acupuncture can really be a diagnostic tool that kind of helps you find problems before they become large problems so that they can be treated preventatively and before they become big and expensive issues.
Yeah, and you just said something that's really interesting, because a lot of times people might try to contact, alternative therapy people before they even talk to their own veterinarian. And that's not what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, so when I have clients sign up with me, even though I am a veterinarian, I am fully licensed in the states that I work in. I have a background in both general practice and sports medicine. Right now, I only do alternative medicine. And so what I make sure that my clients have is a veterinary patient-client relationship with their primary care veterinarian. And depending on what's going on with the case, I make sure that that patient has seen that vet for the condition that we're concerned about prior to me going out there. Because say this is an emergency condition and your horse has feed coming out of its nose and doesn't seem to be able to swallow. This is not a time for acupuncture. That being said, acupuncture, I have actually, in an emergency situation, had acupuncture be helpful for choke. However, the way that you need to treat choke is with an emergency visit from your veterinarian. And then once that emergency situation is over, then acupuncture can help with the motility of the esophagus and help the inflammation that esophagus just went through heal. And so that's the appropriate way to use acupuncture for those kind of urgent situations. So one, you should have a veterinary patient-client relationship with your primary care veterinarian. And two, acupuncture should be used in a scheduled non-emergent manner.
What things do you not think acupuncture is useful for? And again, emergencies. If the horse breaks its leg, call your vet. But what other things that somebody might, come up with that they might call you first? And you might say, well, you need to go see your primary vet first.
Well, there are some things that, sometimes people will say, well, the horse has been lame for 6 months. And I'll say, okay, has it had an orthopedic exam? And they'll say, well, no, not yet. And so there's certain things that just, from the orthopedic exam would be helpful to know as far as flexion tests, hoof tester results, et cetera. That information can really help guide that acupuncture appointment too, because there are some things that conventional medicine can treat easily and faster than acupuncture. You really hit the nail on the head. Really, emergencies are the biggest thing that acupuncture is not good for. Sometimes there's conditions where they're either extremely chronic, the horse has been suffering for years. And in those cases, you'd be surprised. Sometimes one treatment of acupuncture can be helpful, but oftentimes it requires a series of treatments. If it's a laminitis case, once a day, if it's other types of cases, maybe once a week for 4 weeks, and then decrease the frequency from there. It just depends on the physical exam and the horse. Once I see it, basically, as far as the recommendations. I would never turn someone away except for an emergency situation. It's always worth a try. You never know how the horse is going to respond. It's just like riding. So one thing that we've talked about in our previous podcast, I believe, is that think of how different horses are under saddle. You have that. And I absolutely love thoroughbreds. They're my favorite. I used to work at the racetrack. But think about that hot thoroughbred ride, right? Where you just think canter and you're cantering, the aids are so subtle, they can feel anything, right? You just think about it and they know, right? And then think about maybe you're on a draft or a draft cross, right? And think about, now some of those can be hot too, but if you think about, that duller horse that you've ridden where they just take a lot of aids, right? So much seat and so much leg. And, there's just a lot of effort to go forward. Their nervous systems are the same. And it's really fun for me to work with all of these different types of horses, because there's some horses that, you put 4 needles in them and that's plenty. That's all they need. And their bodies will do the rest. And there are other horses that need a lot more help, big needles, thick needles, and many needles in order to get anything done. And so it's always worth a try. You may not get the results that you want in one treatment. It may take a series, so you have to have a little bit of faith. But that's true of things like massage therapy too.
I also want to touch on with you, Dr. Aumann, there is a difference between somebody who's taken a weekend course in acupuncture and somebody who's certified in veterinary acupuncture. I mean, we even know some people who do acupuncture in humans that want to work on horses. So help horse owners understand a little bit when they're looking for someone to do acupuncture, what's the difference and how do you find someone?
So first off, the person that you're looking for, acupuncture in most states is considered a surgical procedure because you are inserting a stainless steel instrument into the horse. And so surgical procedures must be done by a veterinarian. And so I think that's the first thing to look for. A lot of people will reach for a human acupuncturist, who's had a little bit of additional training in animals. And the problem is that they're not going to recognize the common diseases that a veterinarian is going to recognize and see, right? And two, their knowledge of the anatomy is not going to be the same as someone who has had 8 years of medical training in the species that they're working on. First thing, veterinarian. And then the second thing is there's a reason why we have these certified veterinary acupuncturist courses. They make sure that at the basic level, a veterinarian understands enough traditional Chinese theory and understands the anatomic location of the acupuncture points in order to do a good job and do a good treatment. You can find information on finding veterinarians who are certified in acupuncture through a couple different websites. The AAVA does have a search engine. So does the Chi Institute, so aava.org, and then I believe it's tcvm.com for the Chi Institute. And then IVAS, the International Veterinary Acupuncture Society, IVAS.org also has a search engine for acupuncturists. Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
And I'll make sure for those listening on the podcast, if you want to go to EQUUSmagazine.com under the article that will go along with this podcast, I'll just include some links there so that if you want to go search and see if there is a certified veterinary acupuncturist in your area, you can find one and contact them or talk to your veterinarian about them.
And that I would encourage too, is that if you ask your primary care veterinarian if they know of a veterinarian who specializes in alternative medicine and specifically acupuncture that they like to work with, then that's a great chance for the team to all work together. So when I work with referring veterinarians, if it's a complicated case, if we're working on a neurologic horse, that's EHV1 positive or something, I'm going to call that vet before I even look at the horse. And we are going to have a powwow about what's going to go on and how everything's going to go down. And then all the reports get shared with the primary care veterinarian as well. And so if you want the team approach for your horse, which is probably the best medicine, talk to your primary care vet first.
So when you are a horse owner, how do you look at your horse and know that you might want to discuss acupuncture with either your veterinarian or a veterinary acupuncturist?
I think anytime that you're running up against something that's frustrating for you is a great time to talk with your primary care vet about including a veterinary acupuncturist in the game plan. Behavioral things can be a perfect place for acupuncture because they can help you parse out, is this a pain condition? Is this a stomach condition? Is this truly behavioral, like a mental problem? And what's cool about acupuncture is that for those who are open to getting all frou-frou-y, they'll talk about emotional component too. Is this an emotional problem for this horse? And so acupuncture can be great for behavioral cases for parsing out, pain, visceral, emotional/mental issues.
And that is awesome. And unfortunately, now all the horse owners are going to find an acupuncturist, not just for their horses, but for themselves. Because I'm sitting here thinking, golly, I really need to. Back in Kentucky, there was an MD who was a really great acupuncturist whom I learned about from one of my veterinarian friends. But unfortunately, around here, there's really not, certified veterinary acupuncturists. So it's a little more difficult when you're in areas where it's not around. But I was just going to mention that sometimes a university, if you have a veterinary teaching hospital within a drive, a lot of times there will be somebody on staff there that might be certified.
Yeah, I haven't ever checked the numbers, but I think that's a great place to look. Oftentimes, there's somebody at the university who's interested in alternative medicine who has become trained in acupuncture and can provide that service. It's becoming increasingly more popular, and so you're absolutely correct on that. It may be hard to find someone within a mile, but at your local teaching hospital, there should be someone there.
Well, that is great. And Dr. Aumann, thank you so much for joining us today on the EQUUS Farm Calls podcast. And again, we remind everyone you can go to EQUUSmagazine.com and there will be an article there. And I will put the links into the places where you can go and use the search engine to find a certified veterinary acupuncturist in your area. So thank you, Dr. Aumann.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And a big thanks to our audience for joining us today on EQUUS Farm Calls. And also thank you to Farnam for allowing us to bring all these fun topics to you as horse owners. EQUUS Farm Calls is the production of the Equine Podcast Network, which is an entity of the Equine Network, LLC.